big one, Joseph. Nakto Key. Thanks for the support with Super Chat. Love your perspective on the sequel trilogy. Do you think the sequels will be better received in the future like prequels? And which films are our favorite in the sequel era there? We always like to have fun ranking things, but it's not competitive ranking. We love to just share our loves for things equally, but it's a fair question and a good one there. Where do you go with the big one, though, Joseph? I think the answer for me is yes, and we'll get into the why, but where do you go?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that the sequels will follow a similar trajectory to the prequels. It's slightly different because honestly, one of the, I think, biggest sort of conflict points with the sequels is there are plenty of people who just I don't like the whole thing, but then there are plenty of people who like Last Jedi, but really don't like Rise of Skywalker. So that adds this other complexity to it. But I really think the people who grew up with them didn't grow up with any of the baggage. I think we're going to start getting those. I was 8. I didn't know that people didn't like them. Okay, we're going to start getting that real soon. I also just think that the sort of the expectations and the ire will calm down, and as people give them another chance and watch them in a flow. I know I've said this a lot, but watch them just as the films, not and put some of the stuff out of their head of what they heard in interviews or behind the scenes or who planned what or who did what or who should have done what, and just watch them as a story and nothing but a story. Like, I think a lot of us as hardcore fans still know from the original trilogy, things like, this Gary Kurtz really wanted to do this, and people my exact age are still like, Return of the Jedi was bad because they made just toys and Gary Kurtz, blah, 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 blah. So many people like, Gary, who? What? I got no baggage with the original trilogy because I watch it as one story. And I think the more people that just watch the sequel trilogy as one story, again, my opinion, I think it holds together incredibly well on the big picture themes and the character arcs. Always things to be discussed about. Maybe it would have been better for this to happen or that to happen, or, very valid concerns brought up by John Boyega and things like that. Those are all valid to me and worth discussing. But if you have no other baggage and you just sit down and watch the films, for me, they all go on a journey and it all works.
Yeah. I really agree with that, obviously, and I think without a doubt that generational shift will happen. And to me, it's not just because, hey, again, the next celebration, 2025, is going to be the 10-year anniversary of Force Awakens. That's a crazy number. It seems like just yesterday to you and I, and probably many in the audience, Joseph. But if you were 10, you're in college at that point. You're in your second year of maybe studying film. You were influenced by that. If you loved the film, if you were pulled in by Force Awakens, it's not just the simple, well, we all loved sugary cereal as a kid. It's like those were their stories. They got the messages of the movie. They were there for it, and they engaged with it on the level that you talked about, just like we did with the original trilogy and another generation did with the prequels. You and I not only appreciate the movies, we also want to make sure we're being part of the generations that allow the ones behind us to enjoy Star Wars in their own way, not the way we enjoyed them in '83. I think that's an important thing to hold on to as a Star Wars fan, because that's what Star Wars is talking about. So it will happen. And it's, I really get Three Whiskeys grumpy at, the idea of Babu Frick and his friends showing up in Mando. And I've already seen some journalist types at the time of that reveal. And even now, the sequel rehabilitation's happening. What attitude does that get you? What's that worth? What's that worth? And are you then going to tell that kid who's inspired by maybe not even the character of Babu Frick, but the tech of Babu Frick, and they want to get into model making or special effects or visual effects? What does that get you to be like that? If you didn't like it, fine. No problem. There's what ifs for days in the sequel trilogy, just like all of them. What if Han had died in Jedi? What if Boba Fett was featured more in Jedi? What if we had gone to Vader's castle or Palpatine's lair in Empire? There's all these wonderful what ifs. What if Lucas had planned that Leia was his sister? You can have fun all day doing that. But what ifs get turned against the stuff now by our generations. And that's not the case for the next generations. And perhaps that next generation will have the battle with 10, 11, and 12, which I'm sure it will one day have. It is unfortunately cyclical, but we here definitely want to celebrate that. So I think it absolutely is going to happen. And it's already happening. And it's already Media literacy is an interesting topic, an interesting discussion, but not here to wag fingers. Just here to say we're here for these movies and I love them. But that leads to the question of, do you have a go-to right now? How about this, Joe? We're not going to say our favorite of the sequel trilogy. We're going to say, what's your go-to right now?
Yeah. Well, first, I just want to. There's a lot of great comments here, but I want to highlight this one from Obi-Wan Konobi. The Last Jedi turned me off Star Wars for a while, but after not looking at sequel hate, it's become easily my favorite of the three. So I do example of what we're talking about. I do think there is, especially when something is as beloved as Star Wars, to give it some space, give it some time, re-examine it. It is always, a powerful thing. I think for me, the funny thing about the sequel trilogy is it in some ways, without being favorites, it does move like the original trilogy in a good way to me. There's this blast of the fresh in The Force Awakens, which some people would scoff at because that's the one that they think is using too much nostalgia. But I mean, Rey, Poe, Finn, Kylo. Kylo's a massive, amazing achievement to me of the new. So I kind of love Force in the first, third is just so like adventure serial, fast moving. So I love that. It pops. Then I think The Last Jedi is, I don't even want to say that it is better made, but just like Empire, because it's the middle chapter where people have to go through hell, it slows down and it twists the screws, and not just physically, but emotionally. And because that's what the story is, by definition, you go a little deeper. And so I appreciate The Last Jedi for going a little deeper, because that's what the second chapter of the story does, in my opinion. But like a lot of people saying, Rise of Skywalker is the triumph. It makes me weep. It's got so many beautiful moments. So even though there's some like pulpy things and some, rough edges that I think could have been smoothed out, that people make fun of angrily and with love at this point, of the somehow Palpatine returned, even though it's got some of that stuff, it's up there for me. I love it. It's one of the favorites.
Yeah. Force Awakens was literally the call to adventure, and yeah, I understand some of the, even I at the time was like another big kind of Death Star thing, but I love the theme of evil just keeps repeating its attempts at power grabs because it thinks that's what's going to work. Fine, we'll build it bigger and better and planet sized, and that will work. Oh no, but did not. And I love that theme. But Last Jedi deals with the overall themes that you and I have discussed for a long time with the sequel trilogy. One of the big ones is, it's how you deal with the past, how that nostalgia everyone talked about, and how do you interact with it, both as the next generation coming up with them above you. I thought Luke Skywalker was a myth. The Han Solo, that's above that generation. And then you got that generation, coming back going, we have to deal with who we were, and how do we do that? And Last Jedi, like you said so well, deconstructs what Star Wars is to us as fans and asks, is it worth it, right? And if you stick to the end of the movie, Joseph, it answers the question.
I will not be the Last Jedi is a pretty big thumbs up on Star Wars.
Yeah. But for me right now, if I'm in that mood, Rise of Skywalker, I absolutely put it on, because it is. I remember at the time when it first came out, my first review at the old job, I said it's completely bonkers. It's totally bonkers. There's some things I love, some things I didn't think I'd see in Star Wars, and maybe some things I didn't want to see in Star Wars. But it's bonkers in a way that does kind of respect the serial adventure style, and it's just so Star Wars. And sometimes when I'm just like, you got that, like, all right, should I put on a Star Wars film? I just hear Kylo Ren's ship approaching Exegol. I hear the lightning striking as Palpatine talking to him. I've died, behold. I want to hear that. I want to go and see Rey's smile on Pisana as the Aki are dancing around her, and she's learning, yes, this is what the world that's out there, and this is why we're fighting for it. This is the joy I want to protect, though I'm afraid that my powers and who people claim I am might be used against this very world and my friends and things I love. And the big lessons, and I'm very sappy about the movie. There's about 6 cry points, and I love it. And it just has that feel. And again, is it a little wild? Is it a little messy? Is there some behind the scenes stories that you could all gossip about? Absolutely. But it's how it makes me feel right here. And that's why right now I go to that movie more than any other one. So there you
go. 2 other things I'll say real quick, and then I'll let it go. I know I've talked about this on the podcast recently, but the old woman with Itobi You know, there's been no one for so long. Obviously, the setup is literal of this is an abandoned, attacked, haunted place that you seem to be finding peace in. What are you doing here? But when Luke in The Last Jedi says, I will not be the last Jedi, to me, that emotionally, subtext, it's connecting to that old woman going, there's been no one for so long. It feels like there hasn't been a next generation. There hasn't been a hero, but you're here, Rey Skywalker. Absolutely love that. Love it to death.
Yeah. Love it there. Love it there. So that's our one of our big thoughts.